The capture of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro harkens back to the capture of another Latin American strongman, Panama's Manuel Noriega, 36 years ago. Well, on our distinguished panel today, we have one of the original members of the U.S. Army's Delta Force who helped capture Noriega in 1989, retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. General Boykin spent 36 and a half years in the United States Army, serving his last four as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. Currently serves as the Executive Vice President here at the Family Research Council. Also on our panel today is retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, who served 32 years in the U.S. Navy before retiring in 2017. He also served at the National Security Council as Director for Transnational Threats. He is currently a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. General Boykin, Admiral Montgomery, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Good to be here.
I did be here.
General, let me start with you. Can you remind our viewers and listeners why Panama's Noriega needed to be toppled, why he needed to be detained?
Well, I think your previous speaker laid that out pretty good, but we need to understand also that what prompted George H.W. Bush to finally pull the trigger on that was that Noriega's thugs down there killed an American naval officer and in some ways brutalized his wife. And that was when President Bush said, enough is enough. Go down there and take that country away and turn it back over to the people.
Is there a parallel between the criminal enterprise, the criminal activities that Noriega was involved in, as we now are seeing that Maduro as well was involved in?
Yeah, I think very much so. I mean, this is exactly the same scenario. You had a guy that was pushing drugs into America, and nobody had done anything to try and stop him, and finally it came to this. But I think that it's important to remember that those people that we have gone after, and these are just two of them, there have been others, most of which were on the highly secretive site, but those people are killing Americans. And our president's first duty to the people is to protect the nation.
Admiral Montgomery, I'm going to bring you in here. Unpack for us more of the details from Saturday's capture. What details do we have? What do we know? How did it transpire?
Well, look, I think this was the natural consummation of a 3-month pressure campaign by the president. So the president, starting about 3 months ago, very aggressively started to communicate to Maduro and his cronies that your behavior is unacceptable. It began with strikes on boats. It evolved into sanctioning shadow fleet ships, which evolved further into seizing 3 of those tankers, and then included a Title 50, an intelligence community allegedly executed attack on one of their port facilities. So he was ratcheting up. He was offering Maduro the opportunity to leave the country, to get to Cuba on his own, and only when he, felt that Maduro wasn't taking him seriously did he then execute what Secretary Rubio has described as a military naval law enforcement operation.
From what we've been able to detect from what was unveiled in court today, the charges that were levied against Maduro and his wife, it as I made reference to earlier, it sounds like a criminal enterprise. They were working with the cartels, running drugs, weapons, so on and so forth. I mean, he was using the country as a launching pad for criminal activity that was affecting the United States, is how I read it. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, I think it is. But I would go further. I would say he and his cronies. One thing that worries me is that we've left. Look, he was a bus driver. He wasn't. His choices for him weren't like become a brain surgeon or become president of Venezuela. He wasn't that smart. The people running this criminal enterprise were the Minister of Defense, Pedrino Lopez, and the Minister of Justice Interior, Cabello Rondon. Those two fellas are still there, effectively in charge of the government with a feckless vice president fronting for the two of them. So this is a criminal enterprise. I think as we hear the case play out, we'll recognize that the several of the key co-conspirators are still in Caracas, in charge of the country. And the president needs to, and I think Secretary Rubio's averted this, and the president initially threatened both of these men with "you're next." And I think he needs to carry through on that, keep that pressure campaign up, and tell these guys, you either go to Cuba, you go join Maduro in New York City, or you're terminated. I mean, those are really to be the three options for these two men.
So, in other words, it's time for them to get off the Maduro bus and find a bus stop. So let's play that out for a moment. What does that look like then? Does the United States just help with legitimate elections and raising up the new leadership? I mean, that can't happen overnight. I throw it out there for either one of you.
I do think that I am disappointed slightly in comments about Maria Machado, the leader of the opposition, and Edmundo Gonzalez, the surrogate who stood in for her and won the 2024 elections. I think the president should more clearly state that they are the democratically elected leadership of Venezuela, and either force their installation or force the conduct of elections in the next 3 months, so that they can win or not win a free and fair, transparent election overseen by legitimate international observers from the United States.
General Boykin, I'll go back to you. The effort, the operation to take Noriega took a little bit longer than what this happened on Saturday night over the weekend. What was most revealing to you in the capture of Noriega?
Well, I was, we chased him for several days before we finally caught him on, I think it was the 6th of January, that we actually were able to get him out of the Nunciatura. And I think the thing that kind of puzzled me was once we had him, everybody turned against him. Nobody wanted to be identified as being with him. And that's how so many of these thugs are allowed to do the things they do, is the people that are that want something from him, they get in behind him. And just look at the streets of Venezuela today with all the people out there thanking America. He doesn't have any allies. He just has some people that want to hang on for whatever they can get out of it.
Now, I think you also mentioned to me, as you went in and you were able to take him, the depth of depravity that surrounded him and his regime. That's
absolutely. Let me tell you, one of the things that the CIA passed to us while we were there was the fact that they had captured some people that told them where there were some people buried that he had actually killed. And when we dug those things up, it was unbelievable how he had mutilated those bodies, even as, they had been in the ground for a while. But the mutilation was just unbelievable as to what he had personally done, according to the CIA's informant. He had done those things, and it was brutal.
And there was a connection to voodoo as well?
I'm sorry, to whom?
Just the religious connotations, voodoo and other occult activities surrounding his regime.
We hit every safe house he had. And in every safe house, he had a satanic altar on one side, and he had a Christian altar on the other side. And of course, you know the story of his red underwear. If you don't mind me saying, he wore red underwear to ward off the evil, and he was the evil. But and ultimately, when we captured him, he confirmed why he was wearing those. But he was a complex character, but he was evil from the start to go.
I mentioned that if you'd like to see that red underwear, it's at Fort Bragg. People can see that at the museum.
It is in the museum at the Delta Force compound. And
thanks to General Jerry Boykin.
I made the mistake of saying the only thing I want is those red drawers and my doctor brought them to me afterwards, so I got rid of them as quickly as I can.
Admiral, what can we expect to see in Venezuela? I mean, that was a very prosperous country. They have tremendous oil reserves there in that country. How long does it take them to get back on their feet, and what's going to be required?
First, it reminds me to say how honored I am to be here with General Boykin, a real war hero. And one thing he reminded me of is a unique opportunity we had in the Panama was that General Boykin and other Army officers and myself and other Navy officers, we knew hundreds of our peers in the Panamanian forces because we've gone to war college together, been stationed together. One of the problems we have in Venezuela is we've cut off that training program legitimately, correctly, for 25 years. So right now we don't have that colonel to colonel, general to general. We went to school together relationship. So this is going to make things tougher for us going forward, not having that military to military where we can lean in to former classmates at Army War College or West Point, that you normally have. Going forward, answering your question, look, I think it's really critical that the United States get these push forward elections for a transparent set of elections that are run fairly, and let the Venezuelan people decide. I think they will. One of the things that worries me is the sovereign wealth fund of Venezuela, which was enormous 25 years ago, because they have the world's largest proven reserves of oil, 300 billion barrels still. They have no sovereign wealth fund. It's been looted by the Machado regime. And their oil infrastructure outside of what Chevron is operating has been allowed to become dilapidated and in sore need of billions, with a B, billions of dollars of investment. And that's what the president was kind of reaching out to Phillips, Conoco, and Exxon, asking them to step in to get that part of the treasury going again. So it's going to be a real problem going forward for Venezuela for at least a half decade or decade.
Both of you know that when a regime change takes place and a strong man is removed, that evil abhors a vacuum and often fills that vacuum. And in the situation, the latter is sometimes worse than the former. I know no one wants to hear this word, and the administration has refused to say that this is going to happen, but will an occupation of that country be required by the United States to give them time to get on their feet and to keep that evil from grabbing the reins?
I'm going to let the Admiral answer that question.
I hope not. I don't think, look, one of the things I will say is I'm not sure that we've planned out the transition here. We once again, we're facing a situation where we have done the first thing first, done a good job. I don't think the American people would be excited about an occupation. I have to tell you, if you tell me you need 10,000 infantry people in position to enforce our will, we all know that for the U.S. military, that means we have 40 to 50,000 joint force kind of supporting that. We are a large footprint. When we go in, we don't put our men and women at risk wantonly. So if we were to get involved, we would be all in involved. And even though it's in our hemisphere, so it's a little less demanding on our logistics, it's still very demanding on the military. So I'm really hoping that's not the answer going forward. But I have not heard a transition, plan from the executive, from the administration yet that explains how they're going to do this. So I do worry, and that's a legitimate concern you raise.
Admiral, General, I want to thank both of you for joining us today. Insightful conversation, and thank both of you. I thank both of you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.